Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the channel. It's Cynicalex, and today I want to bring you part 2 of the new World Boss Ultimate Striker changes, but it's also the new game changes as far as this test build APK server goes. Now, before we get into the actual comments and reactions and then more information that I've since learned and can confirm for you, I just want to confirm that, like all these other APK videos, I have to say that things are not final. And when I say it this time around, I really hope that they are not final in the sense that the devs hear all of the backlash and they backtrack, they step back, they roll back, they remove some of these changes, because I think, some of the changes may be necessary in some ways, or some of the changes could be augmented, or, maybe instead of 3-second strikers, it's 5-second strikers, little small baby steps. But some of these other changes, especially the ones I want to show you today, I think are way too sweeping, and I do not think they should make it to the live version in any form whatsoever. But in order to properly address all of the comments, we're going to take a different style approach this time, and we're going to do a bit more of a journalistic call and response to what you've been saying. Part 1. Your positives were BS. So this was a message that I saw quite frequently from a lot of players, and I was actually surprised when I mentioned that one of the positives of the strikers having less frequency of coming out could actually help phones be less laggy. It could help overheating and things like that. For those of you that said I was BS, I just did a really simple Google search, Marvel Future Fight plus phone overheating, and I just get, massive amounts of different unique posts on different forums all around. This is Reddit. It's cut off here, but it's Reddit from a couple of months ago. This is Reddit again from a couple of months ago. So yeah, I guess if I'm BS, then all of these people, I mean, this post right here has 12 comments. This one had 68 comments with 67 upvotes. I guess all of these people were just crazy and they all just imagined it, or what I said was not BS. Part 2. This is all your fault. This is all the fault of the star agents. So this one I can sort of understand a little bit if you are a newer player, if you are someone who never engages with the community, you don't go on Reddit, you don't go on Discord, you don't go on Twitter, you don't go on Facebook, you just put your head down and play the game, and then once in a while, you watch a big YouTube video from me or from another content creator, and you might seem to think that those big ideas that we maybe react to or have opinions on somehow gets breathed into existence in future updates by the devs. Now, it's really sad that I have to not only defend myself, but also defend other star agents. But, what I'm about to say about myself, you can find the exact same amount of proof for basically all of the other star agents. So we're just going to take a fun little look here at videos that I made that were never, ever, ever, ever picked up on by the Marvel Future Fight devs. So here was an idea I had from a year ago, Daily Shadowland. Crazy idea, right? Yup, because it never happened. Here's another idea where I talked about the Alliance Tournament 3 years ago, and I said I bashed the Alliance Tournament, and then I took a closer look, and I said that it was still pretty garbage. You guys seem to hate the Alliance Tournament. Guess what? Did they ever change it? No, they never listened to me. How about another video where I was really, really happy about this new timeline battle combo with Colossus and type enhancement? I didn't want them to change it. Did they change it? Yes. So in that case, I screwed myself. Another video where I complained endlessly about how sucky Emma Frost was. Did they listen to me and change Emma Frost? Absolutely not. Another video where I complained about Alliance Battle and Alliance Battle Extreme and how they haven't changed the rewards for those game modes in over 850 days. That was 10 months ago. You guys seem to like the video. You guys agreed with me. Did Netmarble agree with us? No. How about 2 weeks ago when I made the exact same video again? Did I breathe that one into existence? No. So this basically boils down to whenever I make a video complaining about something or pointing something out that's bad or saying that something needs to get fixed, and it doesn't happen, everyone just forgets about it, which is sort of normal human behavior. You're not just going to remember every single thing that I say. It's impossible. I don't remember most of the things that I say. I don't remember what I ate for breakfast today. On the other hand, if I say one or two things that happen to be similar, or at least closely related to something negative that happens, even in the next 6 months, oh, trust me, human beings, we have great memory for negative things. So people can very easily, again, not everyone, but some people can very easily connect that thing that I said a couple of months ago, that thing that I said for 5 seconds in a video 3 months ago, in a 10-minute or 20-minute video where I said like 1,000 different things. They connect those 2 or 3 sentences and they're like, yup, He's definitely the reason why. These star agents are definitely the reason why all this bad stuff is happening in Marvel Future Fight. And I really want to emphasize that this is the absolute worst and most garbage opinion that you could have, because what you're essentially doing is creating an us versus them division. You are making it easier for the devs to not be held responsible for these mistakes because you're trying to put the blame on other players. And that's the last thing you should do. Blaming it on whales, blaming it on free-to-play players, blaming it on low spending or casual players, blaming it on me, blaming it on other star agents, blaming it on other content creators who aren't star agents. I wasn't even a star agent when it first came out. I only started becoming a star agent because we got access to the APKs. So having these kinds of divisions and seeking out these kinds of divisions because it makes you feel good or it gives you someone to blame that's actually visibly tangible in there, while I can understand it from a very, basic point of human development and human emotion, it needs to stop. It really does need to stop. The people that are to blame for this mistake are the devs and no one else. Not me, not any other content creators, no one on Reddit, etc. It's just the devs, okay, guys? Number 3, you wanted this. This one I've seen a lot of as well. Players basically saying that I wanted these changes to happen. I want World Boss to be really difficult for some strange reason. No, definitely not the case. I never wanted them to change the strikers to make them 10 seconds long. I never wanted them to make the changes that I'm going to show you that they're hopefully not going to make, but it seems like they are going to make, to all crowd control effects like time freeze and mind control. This is never what I meant when I said that I wanted challenging content. When I say I want challenging content, it means I want content that makes us use our entire roster. Getting rid of certain effects doesn't make us use our roster because those characters are still garbage. Now that I can't time freeze the boss instantaneously and for the whole fight with Doctor Strange, that doesn't mean I'm going to go play with Blade. So the two things are completely unrelated. Not to mention the fact that I never quit the game when things got difficult in the first place, which might be an indication of me like begging for harder content for whatever reason. They moved up the difficulty of the game. There's a huge difficulty spike on the 1-year anniversary when they introduced the Black Order and they introduced World Boss. I never quit when that happened, even though I was absolutely garbage at it. When they upgraded World Boss and they invented the Ultimate Mode and I couldn't get that far on every single stage, I didn't quit either. I'm a pretty adaptable player, whether I like or dislike changes, and I didn't really like World Boss at the time, and I didn't really like World Boss Ultimate when they changed it either. I just sort of stuck it out. Finally, the devs don't really listen, and I've covered this in the previous thing about Part 2, but the devs don't really listen to everything anyone says anyways, and they selectively listen to requests from players as far back as the beginning of the game, because back in December of 2015, before I even had a YouTube channel, before any of this started, we had an update called Spider-Verse, which is right here, and it was from December 2015, and guess what one of their posters were for this update? Because, this is a really bad angle, but because you demanded it. Now, who would they be talking to when they're saying because you demanded it? I certainly didn't demand it. I didn't have a YouTube channel. I wasn't even posting on the Reddit. So obviously there's more to the player base than just what you might see on Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, and YouTube that may be giving the devs information or giving the devs suggestions, ideas for content, and they may have, and I think in this case they did incorrectly listen to players who wanted these kinds of changes. So with that being said, I've recapped everything. We already know, we've already covered the first striker change. Just to give you guys a recap for the first striker change that apparently will be going live with the live server, which I don't like, but okay, is that strikers are now going to not only come out less frequently, but they're going to take a lot longer to come back. It's going to be a 10-second cooldown on strikers in between attacks. But that's not all. If that wasn't bad enough, we have something worse. They have essentially nerfed, hardcore nerfed, all mind control, freeze, charm, paralyze, any sort of effect that makes the boss stop and stop attacking will have a reduced effect duration the more you use the skill. So I'll use someone very simple like Luna Snow as an example here. We're going to go into a match and you're going to see that her 5 seconds of entice or charm on her 4th skill does not last 5 seconds as the fight progresses. So just to recap, Luna Snow's charm lasts for 5 seconds. When you click on the skill and you see the little freezing dance there, you see it counting down, and that was the full 5 seconds. We hit him. He was not, well, he was moving, but he wasn't attacking or doing anything for 5 seconds. Okay? But the problem is that with this change, and again, there's a possibility this is a bug. There's a possibility this is unintended. Hopefully it is. I'm crossing my fingers that it is, because this is a really negative change. But the way that it's functioning now, and the way that you're going to see it play out over the next minute, is that the more I use this skill, the less effective it becomes. And it's hard to notice at first. You know, it's hard to just look at an icon that's flashing and be like, yeah, it's definitely getting shorter. But you'll be able to, wow, you'll be able to see it as I cast it more and more, where it just seems to last, it just seems to run out a little bit too fast. And you'll see that this is the case once we get down, once we cast it more, and then once we get down to a little bit further in stage. So there you can start to notice that something's wrong. He's not staying mind controlled. He's not staying charmed. He's not in that frozen dance for very long. There we go. Okay, what happened? That lasted like a second, maybe a second and a half. What happened to the 5 full seconds? Okay, I know. I'll press the skill, and then I'll touch the icon with my finger. I was able to do that the first time. Here we go. 1. So that's a very, very obvious visual indicator. When I held down the button, it said 1. Whereas a minute ago, when I held down the button, it said 4, which is 5 minus 1. So you can see here that the skill is now, you know, at a second or less. I don't think I need to tell you guys, regular viewers of the channel, what this means. And this doesn't just apply to Luna Snow. This is every single character who has any kind of ability that freezes the boss. Anything at all. Mind control, charm, entice, freeze, paralyze, you know, whatever, dominance of spirit, whatever you want to call it. All of those effects are being equally affected. Now, I don't want to show you guys in the video because it just takes too long to show you, but what essentially happens is that the boss builds up an immunity. That's basically how you can imagine it. And I'm not describing it because I want you to understand it so that you can play around it. I mean, that might end up being the case if they don't change it, but I'm just trying to explain what I think is going on as far as the mechanics go, in the hope that this is a mistake, this is a glitch, this is an unintended consequence of some other change in the code, and the devs are going to realize this, and they're going to know how to fix it faster. So essentially what happens is, every time you hit the boss with a skill that freezes them, they build up a small amount of immunity to it. So let's say at the beginning of the fight, they have 0 immunity to those effects, to those crowd control effects, and you hit them with it, so it lasts the full 5 seconds. But then they felt it, so that crowd control reduction, that immunity goes up by, let's say 10%. And then you hit them again, and it goes up by 10% again. It goes up to 20%, then 30%, then 40%. That's why after I've cast that skill, after I hit the Ebony Maw with Luna Snow, 6, 7, 8 times, it was down to 1 second. A much more obvious and honestly a much scarier consequence of this is actually Doctor Strange. So you can see here that Doctor Strange is, you know, whatever. He's not mind controlling him, whatever. I'm not sure if there's cut time on this stage, which is stopping me from time freezing him, but I don't care about the cut time. I want to show you the paralyze. Doctor Strange's ultimate skill, Images of Icon, has a 1 second paralyze that keeps refreshing over and over again. Watch what happens when you keep refreshing that instantaneously and the boss has reduction. The paralyze happens. You can see the paralyze up at the top with the all defense down, that little purple icon with the little heartbeat or whatever. The paralyze happens and then it stops. He builds up his immunity to the paralyze so fast that he never gets affected by it again. There he is briefly, but it's gone almost immediately. This is a really big problem. Doctor Strange relies on that paralyze, in addition to his time freeze, but he relies on that paralyze to lock down bosses because his tier 3 skill doesn't have any targeting. His tier 3 skill is a rooted ability that has an AoE, but if the boss moves out of the AoE, he takes no damage. There's literally 0 tracking on those clones that get summoned to do the, you know, it's like the Bands of Cyttorak. That's why Doctor Strange is worse than other tier 3s, specifically against Thanos World Boss, because in Thanos World Boss's second phase, he obtains debuff immunity, and then he can no longer get time frozen or paralyzed or anything like that. But that is a mechanic that we have gotten used to. Not something that's being sort of hidden, but we can feel it. It's like a dark hand guiding us and making the game harder for us as we progress through the minutes of the stage without us really understanding what's going on. Now, we might understand what's going on when they give us the patch notes, but that's not really the point. They made a clear distinction almost 2 years ago when they introduced World Boss, the new World Boss with Infinity War. They made a clear distinction between characters being able to mind control bosses that don't have any mind control or, crowd control immunity, like Proxima, like Corvus, like Ebony. Some bosses that will periodically wipe away those effects, like Cull Obsidian, and then bosses that have a hard line where things will either be 100% effective, i.e. you can mind control Thanos as much as you want in the first half of the fight, or 100% ineffective. He's not afflicted or affected by any buffs, any debuffs, any mind control whatsoever in the second half of the fight from 11 bars down. They established these clear rules, and now they're changing them in a way that is confusing and hidden from the player base. There's a lot more wrong with this situation that I'm touching on right now, but it's just too much to explain in one video. This really screws up a lot of characters, and this does not really serve to balance the game because the devs are not making a big enough effort, one, to rebalance all of the other characters. It would be a different story if there was some sort of massive update. And again, I'm just theorizing, but if there was some massive update that updated and buffed all of the shitty characters up to, let's say, like, tier 3 Cyclops level or whatever, and then they also introduced this, it would be a real bummer, no doubt, and it would be very frustrating, but there's at least some incentive to try new characters, and that's what you're being told if that's the case. But that is not the case at all. You're just nerfing characters that we've come to expect and we've come to rank up and build for specific reasons, and you're saying, no, you can't use them for that reason anymore. Like Scarlet Witch, a lot of players built her up specifically for her mind control. Now you're saying that after the first minute of gameplay, it's just not going to work. Now, fortunately, I don't know if you want to call it fortunately, other effects don't seem to be given this sort of penalty. So all defense down doesn't seem to be affected by this, at least in the limited testing that I've done. I can't say with 100% certainty, of course, because I haven't been doing hours and hours of testing, but I did do testing over a few minutes of World Boss, and I wasn't able to see that reduction in the time. It was still 10 seconds every single time that I applied Gambit's all defense down to Proxima. It never reduced itself to 0 or never reduced the timer very, very quickly, despite the fight dragging on for 2-3 minutes. So that is one small, bright spot. It's not even a bright spot. It's just not another mistake that they made. But this is actually pretty crazy. I really think that the devs are taking the wrong approach with what we say when we mean challenging content. Rather than going back to the same game mode over and over and over again, the devs need to realize that they need to update other game modes. I don't know if this is their only move that they're going to make, but it seems very deaf, very tone deaf for the devs to hear us saying we want hard content, we want challenging content, and then them to think that we mean we want changes to this game mode again. You guys changed this game mode a couple of months ago. Sure, you could argue that you made the game mode easier, but you changed it. Why are you changing it again? Are you going to change it again in 6 months when we complain that there's no new game modes? You can't keep changing one game mode, and that's your excuse for updating game content. That's not how it works, right? You have to update other content. You don't say that you changed your wardrobe on your style and your fashion because you keep buying new pairs of shoes. Doesn't matter if you're wearing Doc Martens or sneakers, or you're wearing, Oompa Loompa shoes, or you're putting Wonder Bread on your feet like Mo Sislak with some elastic bands to hold it in place. That is not changing a game mode. You are just frustrating the player base, and you are confusing the player base because they get used to something, and then just after they've gotten used to it and gotten comfortable with it, for better or for worse, whatever the change was, then you change it again. This is a recipe for losing players. This is a really bad idea. I strongly recommend that you rewind these changes and you focus your efforts, you focus your hours that you're paying the devs to work on this game to fix actual content that needs to be fixed. Now, on top of this, there's another problem. These changes, these crowd control changes, appear to apply to all other game modes. Now, it's not that scary when you consider things like, story mode or dimension missions, because those are really easy, and it doesn't really matter if your mind control lasts for 5 seconds or 1 second because you blow through the content anyways. And it doesn't matter as much for things like timeline battle because everyone uses debuff anyways. And in timeline battle, you also have severely reduced crowd control time from the character bonuses. So right there, you have a flat 42% debuff duration just by owning all universal characters. So there is already a lot in place that makes things like stun, mind control, bind, snare. It makes those things very, very hard to pull off in timeline battle. But this still has sweeping ramifications, really serious problems for Alliance Conquest. I mean, these game modes are garbage, but Alliance Conquest, Alliance Tournament, Alliance Battle, World Boss Invasion, and Shadowland as well. So I was unable to verify if the crowd control reduction time is applying to other game modes. I did try to do some testing in Alliance Battle Extreme, but Alliance Battle Extreme is complicated for other reasons, and there may be other changes to Alliance Battle Extreme that are affecting the crowd control abilities, like the roar defense increase and things like that. So Alliance Battle Extreme seems to be having its own sort of hurricane of unnecessary and unneeded changes without any score increases or any reward increases, which is what we actually need. But let me be very clear here. Even if these crowd control changes and the reduction in their effectiveness is only isolated to World Boss and World Boss Ultimate, this is a trash change. This is garbage, and it cannot make it to the final build of the game. Marvel Future Fight devs, hope you're listening. Stop. Don't do this. This is a horrible move. You are completely ruining the value. Maybe not completely, but you are heavily destroying the value and heavily reducing the value of characters like Tier 3 Doctor Strange, characters like Apocalypse, Scarlet Witch, Rachel Summers, Ebony Maw, Molten Man. There's a laundry list of characters, Luna Snow. Many of those characters are paywall or walled behind crystals or walled behind achievements and ranking up other characters. Players spent months, players spent real cash and tons of their time and in-game resources to build up these characters for the specific functions they provided, and now you're just taking that away, and you're not even giving us more rewards. It makes no sense at all. You're just moving and altering the difficulty. It's like shifting sand. It's like one of those puzzles where the staircases go upside down and around, and you're like, I'm trapped in this bizarre maze, but there's really no point to it. There's really no point to doing this other than to frustrate the player base. No one asked for this. Nobody wants this. We want new content that is challenging in a puzzle-like way. New content that makes us use our entire roster in interesting, meaningful ways. We're not asking you to give us a boss that we can't use any crowd control effects on, that just has scaling HP, defense, and attack. That's not challenging. That's just annoying. So yeah, that's my piece. Thank you for listening. Let me and let the devs know your thoughts down below in the comments, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.